Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Kate.
morning, Joan Weitz.
Good morning, Kate.
Sister Marie Leon.
Yes, former Sister Marie Leon,
Former.
present Dr. Joan Weitz.
That's right. Well, thank you for saying yes. I know you're here temporarily, and so I nabbed you. And you graciously, wonderfully said you'd love to do this. So this is an important part of our congregation history. And only you can tell the story. You know the rights and the wrongs and what should be, shouldn't be. So let's start with your beginnings, and which was a surprise to me, from Lancaster, New York.
Small town outside of Buffalo,
Okay, outside Buffalo.
near the airport. And that's significant later on. But
Is it?
Yeah. My parents were Leon Weitz and Marie Magian. And
that's
were
how you
born-
got your name, Marie,
That's how I got my name.
your mom and dad.
Name.
Yeah.
And they were both born in the United States, as were my grandparents. However, their ancestry is German, so I'm pretty stubborn. I say I'm determined, others say I'm stubborn. So they were struggling as a young couple, and then they had a child, my brother, 3 years older than I am.
Okay.
And then I came along, and I was born in 1933. He's 3 years older than I am. Life, I guess, was good. I don't remember things like that. I don't remember.
Okay.
However,
What the family household was like, and yeah.
My mother died when I was 3. I mean, that impacts. I was 3
Oh.
years old. She died in October. I turned 3 in November.
Oh my word.
So that was quite traumatic. She had ovarian cancer. Took a long time for them to discover that until she went to Roswell Park Cancer Institute in Buffalo. So when she died, we moved in with my father's family, mother and father. There were 2 bachelor uncles living at home and an aunt who was engaged. So we moved in with the clan. And Grandma Weitz, I think, had a strong influence on me. She was very prayerful, very German, very organized, and so she would go to Mass every morning. 6:30 Mass, she would come home, finish breakfast, feed everybody. They would go off to work and my brother's school, and Grandma and I were together.
Oh.
A 3-year-old and a 62-year-old. So there were times, you ever heard of a huckster? Well, they
I've heard
would go
these
down
things.
the street and they would be shouting, vegetables, oranges, apples, whatever. And if I was not behaving, Grandma Weitz would say, "You are going to go to the huckster man if you don't behave." And I would run into the kitchen because there was a stove that had legs open in the
Yes,
front.
yes,
I would crawl
yeah.
under, and I would stay there until I no longer heard his voice. And any time, that was the only, I believe it was probably only once that happened, because then
And you took her seriously.
I was in tune. Oh, I did. I really did, because she had a way. One time I said, "But Grandma, it's dark out. It's not dark out yet." She said, "I'll make it dark," and she pulled the shades. So yeah, she was a no-nonsense woman, but I loved her dearly, and I think it was pretty difficult for her. And it was difficult for her because she had, an aunt of mine had died at the flu epidemic.
That's her
And
sister?
then my mother died. That was her daughter. Then
Oh,
my
her
mother
daughter.
died. And so it was tough. And later on, 2 uncles dropped dead of heart attacks within a 8-month span. So she suffered a lot, but her faith was very strong.
I'm sure she delighted, though, in having feminine companionship.
You think?
You think?
Yeah, one day I will know. So less than a year later, my dad remarried.
Okay.
Clonette Weitz. Well, she became Clonette Weitz. And she was Irish. And we always argued, are you Shanty-Irish or are you, that would get me in trouble. But it was difficult for her because suddenly she brought a son into the picture. She had been married, her marriage had been annulled. She was rooming, renting a room with my mother's relatives. So they knew, that side of the family knew her. And then when we moved, after they married, she had we became a family of 3 children. The youngest 3, the oldest 6. So that was difficult. And I was difficult because I was quite spoiled. And again, the boys went off to school, and there I was. So I birthed the wrong time. I should have been either older or even
in between.
Younger. So my stepmother and I did not have a good rapport. I tried, and I'm sure she tried as well. So eventually, I went to grammar school, grades 1, 2, and 3 at St. Gerard's, very close to my grandparents. I made my first communion there. And then there was this was during the war, a project out at the airport where they had built defense plants. There were 2 huge defense plants, and they needed workers. So they built homes. It was called Tyrunda Project, and my family, we were able to get a home, 3-bedroom, brand new home. They were going to tear those homes down after the war. They never did tear them down. So we moved into Tyrunda. Tons of kids, and just happy times as far as we were concerned, and my parents too. We now had a home that my parents actually then bought and lived there, and they both died with owning that home, which was good. And so I went to public school for a couple of years, and then the Dominicans came. The story went that
to Buffalo.
Cheektowaga is right outside of Buffalo. Cheektowaga. And so it's Indian for crabapple.
Oh, say the name again.
Cheektowaga, Cheektowaga. So a neighboring pastor, Monsignor, called Mother Gerald and asked for sisters. At the end of that conversation, Mother Gerald said to him, "Now you will build a convent for the sisters?" "Oh no, Mother. There's a Franciscan mother house down the road, and they are more than welcome to live there." Mother said, "No, you're not getting my sisters."
That was Mother Gerald.
Mother Gerald. Father Lucid heard the story and called Mother, and of course Irish, so he did his little number, and they did become fast friends. And he said, "Mother, I will build your sisters a convent." And he did ultimately build a convent. So 4 sisters came, and they lived in the project for 2 years until...
Who were those sisters?
Sister Brian, Sister Rayfield, who was my sponsor, Sister Kathleen Ann, and there's one other that we thought of the other day, but Martin Ann.
Okay.
Those were the first 4. And the contrast, I had Franciscans in school for the first 3 years. I also had a cousin who was a Franciscan, and now suddenly the white habits and young. In fact, my dad said, "Are all Adrian Dominicans beautiful and young?" Because there were 4, and they were young, and they were attractive, and the habit was beautiful. And so I was probably in 7th and 8th grade at that time, and when they opened the school, and they opened the first 4 grades. So I missed out on having them as teachers, but I was active in the parish, and Father Lucid was really a strong mentor to me. And as I look back, he never lived above his parishioners. And he would golf with bishops and monsignors. He refused to become a monsignor. He just wanted to be a small-time pastor and be good to his parishioners. So he used to call me Jonesy, the only person who could ever call me other than Joan. And I know as I look back, he also was very careful. He would call and he'd ask me if I could come down and sit in the office and answer the phone. And he never stayed around. He either left the rectory for meetings or dinner or whatever, or he would go upstairs. He never drove me home unless there was another person.
Yeah.
So he was very careful as I look back. And so those were happy times. Meeting the sisters, and of course, they, I think, tapped me after a while as perhaps a potential. And I always thought that I wanted to be a sister. I wanted to be either a teacher or a nurse. And when I would play house by myself, I would play school, and I would line up my dolls, and they were so cooperative. I thought, I want to be a teacher, you know. Little did I know that I would have 64 second graders one day, and they weren't staying in their seats and being...
No.
Yeah, but and then I rejected, you know, because I didn't like to see blood or any of that.
The nurse bit,
And I've never regretted it.
So who was instrumental? I'm sure all the different people you had in your life to that point in some way were good mentors for you. But was there someone in particular? You mentioned Sister Raphael.
Yes, I would say Sister Raphael. And there was a point when I wanted to enter, and my stepmother sort of said, you know, I don't think that would be good, or she opposed it a little bit. And so I said to Sister Raphael, well, I'm going to graduate in June, and I'll work a year, and then I'll enter. Well, you know, she was a wise woman. She called my dad and asked for an appointment.
Oh, she did.
So he and I went up to the convent, and when we left, he had given me my blessing. He said, you know, whatever you want.
That's great. You're his only daughter, and you wanted to become a sister.
Yeah. So,
what about your stepmother?
I didn't mention this. We had a younger brother and sister then, so there were 5 children.
Oh, okay.
Bob and Carol, and Bob is 4 years younger than I am, and Carol is 5. So, before we moved to Cheektowaga, that was our family.
And so
there
you're
were 5 siblings.
What we call a blended family?
Blended family,
Yeah.
mine, yours, and ours. Yeah, mine, yours, and ours. And so
how was that for you?
For me, I mean, it was never, you know, that's my stepbrother,
No,
or,
it was
you
your
know,
brother and
that's my
sisters,
biological brother. I mean, we were family.
Yeah.
Except that I know it was painful for my stepbrother, because he went through life with us as Weitzes, and he was Tige, T-I-G-U-E. And when he married, he took on 2 children, 2 boys, and he said, I want to adopt these boys because I don't want them going through life with a different last name. At that time, as an adult, I thought that had to have been difficult for him. And then in retrospect, his father was paying alimony, or I mean, was paying child support, and every month $50 came in, and for a family of, you know, 5 children, that $50 was important. So I think that's why the adoption didn't happen. It wasn't because my dad didn't want to adopt him.
Right.
So
then you entered in 51.
I entered in 51.
Right after high school.
Right from high school. I was 17. And went out to mission in August of that year. I was homesick. Oh, I think Kathleen Ann was a strong influence too, because she came from a large family, and when we traveled to Adrian, we traveled by train, and she kind of looked after me. She was the youngest in that group of 4, and every visiting Sunday, because I didn't have company, she would come over and
because
visit.
you're so far away. Yeah.
And she was from Detroit, but she always spent time with me, and then we'd go with her family. And I've reconnected with her. I mean, she left the community to take care of her own parents after being in the community, I think, almost 30 years.
Oh, my.
And she's a member of St. Blaise Church, and I am too. So we really reconnected, but she was very good to me, because maybe, I mean, I was very lonesome, very homesick, so I went out on mission. And I went to St. Agatha's and taught.
And of course you knew how to teach.
Oh, sure, because I paid my dolls, and they were so obedient, and they learned so quickly. I'm telling you, they did everything right. But I was really blessed, because I think her name was, I tried to remember, I think it was Patrick Mary. She was a tiny nun, and she was magnificent primary teacher, first grade teacher. And every Sunday she would sit with me and we would work out my plans for the next day. And I didn't realize that at the time, that I was really learning under a master teacher.
That's true. I had Virgin. I think we realized the
Mm-hmm.
gift that they were to us when we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah. And Agatha, that was a fun place. We did have I would say, a strict superior. But Betty Ring was there.
Mm-hmm.
And Betty
Mm-hmm.
Ring was a cut-up.
Mm-hmm.
And she would, Patrick Mary I think it was Patrick Mary. Anyway, Betty would push the bell. It was on top of the refrigerator, and Betty would push it back. So for profound silence, Patrick would go at the bell, and it was way back. And so we'd kind of watch. She'd have to get a stool and get on the stool and get up there and get the bell and ring it. And so those were little things that happened that lightened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
So you
good
were in many
experience.
places, but I noticed always Michigan.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
No, except once. I was in my home parish in Buffalo,
Oh, really?
in Cheektowaga.
That's
I
interesting.
think at one time there was a mistake on there.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Well, that's fine.
my-
You know where you were.
I went to, after profession, I went to St. Jude's for a year and a half.
Uh-huh.
Then up to Iron Mountain
Uh-huh.
for 7
oh,
years.
That's far.
Hmm. But I loved Iron Mountain.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I loved it. And then I went to my home parish, Mother of Divine Grace
Uh-huh.
in Cheektowaga, New York.
Okay, that's interesting. They have New Salem, Michigan.
Yeah, no.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you were in your parish. How was
And
that?
then well, I looked at my appointment and said, this has to be a mistake. So
Mhm.
I went there, and in October, Mother Bridgetta came for her visit. And I'm thinking, well, she's going to realize now, and I'll be changed. So it was my turn to go in and have a little chat with her. I walked in the door, and I said, I greeted her, and then I said, I don't know if you know this, Mother, but this is my home parish. And she looked at me and she said, dear, she said, Sister Bertha and I know this is your parish, your home parish.
They knew us.
They knew
us.
everything.
We
They
were
knew
such a
everything.
large congregation. They knew.
Mhm.
Yeah, they did.
So I finished my little thing with her and thought, well, I'm good for the year. I spent 4 years.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
that was wonderful to be so close to my family
Uh-huh.
as an adult. And I saw babies born and just fun times.
Made the rest of us jealous. People like you.
Yeah. Well, that was the only time, the only time that I ever had any kind of regret was the fact that I was not closer to my family.
Mhm.
Just to pop in for
Right.
birthday
right.
cake, an hour or two
Right.
visit. I couldn't
Yeah.
do that. But
And that
yes.
was hard on us. Of course, we didn't let our families know, and I'm sure very hard on the family to the point that,
yeah.
come
Yeah.
home every 3 years, and then who is
Mhm,
this
right.
person?
Right. But
Yes. So of the various ministries that you had, are there a couple that, we can't go through all of them, are there a couple that perhaps were life-changing experiences for you, or challenges that helped form you?
I would say I went to Dominican High in 1970, and that's certainly within that whole span of 14 years. There were many changes. Some were difficult, some were more pleasant, but I would say that the changing there was in let me backtrack just a bit. Before that, I went to Anchor Bay Catholic in
Oh, you were there. Okay.
in New Baltimore,
Okay.
co-ed school, and it was Christmas vacation, Christmas break, 2 days after Christmas. I don't know if you remember the movie theater, and he would open the theater for Sisters and Brothers, and
yes.
and West Side Story was going to be shown, and we had picked up a couple of sisters in Adrian, brought them to our house in New Baltimore. They were visiting, and so they wanted to go to the movie. I didn't want to go because I had a lot of schoolwork to do. I was yearbook moderator, and but then I thought, all right, I'll go. So the four of us left. We didn't get very far. We hit a patch of ice when we went off the road and hit a tree head on.
Oh, my word.
you don't hit trees, you hit poles. They snap. Trees don't snap. And so old Sister Gregory from the laundry was in front of me. I was behind her. There were no seat belts. My arm was up on the back seat. I brought my arm down with my other arm and waited for ambulances. I was more critical than anybody else because it was my whole left side. Shattered both major bones and my hip. And so that was certainly life-changing.
Oh, my word, to say the least.
Between the hospital and then I came here by ambulance for a month, and then back to the hospital where a cast was taken off my arm and there was no use of my arm. So I stayed in the hospital until Memorial Day when I left, so it was from 2 days after Christmas to Memorial Day.
Wow.
And so I had bone grafts for my left hip and other surgeries. However, when I came here, the hospital after 6 weeks could do nothing more for me, so I was going to come here, and we had a family, Gunjanelic Funeral Home.
Right, I remember that.
So Mr. Gunjanelic said, I'll take Sister. His daughter was studying mortuary science at Wayne State. So we're traveling down 94. I'm in a stretcher.
Oh, no.
And Patty says, Sister, look out the window and wave. I raised my body and I waved.
Yep.
I thought, the people that actually saw me, I thought they were going to go off the road. And I said, I can't do that again. I cannot.
Because you were in a hearse.
Because it said Gunjanelic Funeral Home on the side. And there I was, lifting my body up, waving. So that was fun. I said, I'm probably the only Adrian Dominican who has traveled in a hearse alive to my destination. Destination Adrian.
Adrian.
Yes.
So
yes.
you're very familiar with, of course, the Dominican Life Center is totally different than St.
yes.
Clement Infirmary and Maria Hall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's interesting, your left side.
Yes. And it's been the weak side.
weakest side.
Yeah. 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 Because I've had knee replacement, hip replacement
All on the left side.
On this side. And the doctor did say, I had a marvelous orthopedic surgeon. He did say I would be an early arthritic patient.
Yeah.
And it's been true. My body's filled with arthritis. But in this instance, the femur cracked, just split. What held it, I'm not going any further in damaging the knee or damaging the hip, those were fairly new. And it held in place.
So what did you learn about, about yourself through this experience?
I learned that I can be patient. I learned that wherever I am, there is a ministry
Very good. Yeah.
for me. When I was in the hospital, way back when, the nurses talked to me about a young man who was a amputee from a motorcycle accident who was very depressed. And they said, could they bring him down and have me talk with him? And I did. And down in rehab, the same thing would happen. They would put me next to someone, I guess that they felt maybe I could listen to them, and I know I'm a good listener. I think my gift is mentoring. As I look at Dominican High and the women that graduated, and people the past couple of years, former graduates have sort of popped back into my life and said to me, I could have gone either way when I was in high school, but you were there.
Wow.
And I would not have responded any differently, no matter, with whom I was speaking. I mean, if I saw a girl in the hallway, when I was principal, I would say, what's up, come on in. And so I know that was my gift. And I think I learned that through those experiences of long recuperation, especially that one. Because I went from being totally independent to totally dependent. And it was also sort of like, all right, now I've been the Martha, so now this is time to be the Mary. And so and I never resented. And I know that the driver of the car when we had that accident had a hard time looking at me, and I said it was an accident. You know, it could have happened.
The driver of the car you were in, or the one that hit you?
No, the car. We didn't hit a car.
We hit Polo.
The tree didn't speak, but the car.
Yeah.
No, it was an. I never felt any resentment or, you know, why did this happen or why poor me. It was. I seemed to be able to accept. You know, maybe it was all those incidences when I was younger, accepting the death of my mother, accepting, you know, Grandma, accepting my stepmother, and so I did consider those times as ministry.
So your relationship at present with your family,
I have nieces and nephews who are extremely good to me.
Oh, good.
My nephew calls me, you know, Lee. He's my oldest brother's oldest son, and he's a Lee. And in fact, they were able to adopt a puppy, and so I get to see you know, he's got a call about the dog, and his daughter is pregnant, and so he called me to say it's going to be a boy. I said, oh my goodness, the firstborn grandchild is going to be a boy. I don't know what he's going to do. He's going to do. And he has a son who's in med school. So that family, and then his younger brother and his younger sister, they're extremely good to me. They will come and get me. There's going to be a graduation party for my nephew from med school and his sister, who's the one who's pregnant, in May. And Lee said, we'll come and get you and bring you, and you can stay as long as you want. So, yeah. And then I have a sister and a younger brother and the younger sister that I'm very close to. Now, those would be my half brother and sister. But
you don't have them, or
we don't have them,
step them, or
we don't step them or anything.
Or have them.
And Don, the son that my mother brought in to the picture, was brilliant, but very very quiet. But he married a lovely woman, and worked as a stationary engineer, and died when he was 62.
Oh.
Well, my dad, I think that was significant too. I went to Appalachia with Teresa Mayrand. We took some students.
Okay.
And
from Dominican.
And that was 1975, 76, because my dad died. And was buried on his birthday, on his 69th birthday, in 1976. But I knew, we went down to Appalachia that summer with girls, and we worked with Bob Schramm, who had boys, and we took the kids into the house, and anyway, it was a great program. We came back, and I knew I wanted to go to Buffalo and be with my dad for his birthday, and he had arthritis, something really fierce. I was home 2 days, had a couple of really nice visits. Third night, I was about to go out and visit friends, and he had a massive heart attack before I left. And so I was there to call the 911, and he died. And I think I went up to his bedroom, and they had shoved everything aside, and they were working on him. I think he was gone before he left the house.
Yeah.
So I was really grateful that I was there, and I had a couple of nice visits with him, because my dad and I were very close. And that, I think, sometimes caused a little bit of conflict.
Oh, with the new wife and the kids and stuff like that. What did your siblings think of you when you wanted to go to the convent?
Oh, they were happy. Like my younger brother and sister. In fact, when I came home on a visit, my little nephew wanted to know, his mother was going to have another baby, and he wanted to know if it would be a sister and if she would look like me, because I was in habit at that time. Would I be in habit? But no, they were happy, and they've always been, you know, right there. And my younger brother Bob is cut up, and he's just they're all still alive and doing well.
Good, and you have good relationships, it sounds like.
I do, I do. Yeah.
Is there something about you that we don't know, that if you told us, we'd be surprised? Maybe your dear friends, close friends might know, but the rest of us?
I don't know, because I think I'm an introvert, and most people know that, and especially Nancy, my good friend, because she'll say, "You want to go to Kmart?" And it's like pause, and she'll say, "Joan, do you want to go to Kmart?" I'm processing it. I'm thinking, what do I need to do? And then I'll say yes or no. But that's the way I respond to things.
So you're not spontaneous?
No, I have to process, And I did learn that, when you're in a school setting, at Dominican for 24 years, 6 of them as being principal, 4 as assistant principal, dean of students, sometimes you have to make, quick decisions, and other times, you can process a little better. So I don't know. I think I'm pretty much an open book. Students would say, one of the women who worked for us at school, Shirley Leah, had 3 daughters. And she said to her daughters one day, as adults, "Who was your favorite teacher?" And they said, "Sister Joan." And she said, "Why?" Because I had somebody in one of the classes say that I was boring. So, she said, "Why?" And they said, "Because she never yelled, and she was always gentle, and she always knew if she saw us, if there was something, and she called us by name, and if she knew that." So, but I think people that I worked with were aware of that. I don't know if other members of the congregation who know me would pick up on that.
A little diversion. What are your hopes for the congregation? We certainly have been given a lot of things to think about in these last few months, these last couple years, since the last general chapter. At this moment, did you participate in the January 25th? What are your hopes or wishes at this time?
Well, when I'm at Mass, and I look around and I see our age, and that saddens me. But then I also look around and see the youth, the young leadership coming up, and I think there's tremendous leadership among the young, and I think that we've always responded to the signs of the times, and I think that leadership, our major leadership right now, they're looking to the future. Their leadership, I think, is phenomenal, and yet without fear. I mean, I don't fear.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to be around that much longer, but I
never
don't
know.
think people should fear, because we've always done this, and we've always responded, and it excites me to know that we still have much to give. For instance, if all goes well with me, I do want to go back, and I have a couple of things in my bucket that I still want to do. I want to tutor adults. I've never done that.
You can do that here.
I know I can. Yeah, I can. I can. But Teresa Mayrand and Gianna House is very dear to my heart.
Yeah.
And because basically, I was a junior high and high school teacher all my life, and
Right. Well,
I
that's
saw
great.
the changes, and so I see us moving forward, and I also see us open to the Spirit, and I think that the Spirit is definitely very attuned. That we're very attuned to the Spirit and the signs of the time.
And
I'm
you
pretty
certainly-
political.
Okay.
We won't talk
We
about
will
that.
not get into
no,
that.
we will
No,
not.
we won't.
And so I look at that, and I also see signs of the times in that also. So I think...
Is there anything that you had hoped I'd ask you and I didn't ask you want to bring up very briefly?
I don't think there's
Okay.
anything that you didn't ask. This was very easy.
For someone who's an introvert, you did great. And for someone who feels she's not spontaneous, when I invited you to consider doing this, you said yes immediately. Now, maybe it's because Jody had approached you a few years back or something, but that was, for an introvert, again, that was great. So
Well,
I thank you.
I wanted to do it. Well, you invited me,
Uh-huh.
and it was your tone too, and I know you,
Uh-huh.
and I thought, yes, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And
And then to come to me with the date and the time that you wanted to do it. See,
well,
I'm saying that so others listening will.
well, you know too
Yeah.
that I'm organized and going way back to Grandma, and
Yeah.
that I don't like things hanging over my head. If there are things to
Get
do,
it
I
off
like
the
to
list.
make a list and cross them off, and so no.
So
this
maybe we need to get our sisters to put this on their bucket list, huh? So I could go around and ask them what
yes,
their
put
bucket
this
list
in.
is.
This should be in your bucket
How
list.
do you want to be remembered, Joan?
Well, I used to tell my students when we would talk about this, I always said, I want to be remembered as being firm but fair,
Firm but fair.
and that I did genuinely care,
Mhm.
and so I stayed in Michigan, but I think there are women across the state of Michigan and
Right.
beyond that I've had some
Right.
impact. I don't know all of them. One did come to me this summer. The one that donated some money to Gianna House, who wanted to donate it anonymously, and it was $10,000, and she wanted to donate it in my name because of what I had done
Wonderful.
when she was in high school. And that said to me, well done. Well done. I did what I could. I returned to Dominican reluctantly in 1990. I was happy at Marion High School, but I returned after we were studying the Book of Esther, and I thought, maybe. And I never regretted any time.
That's good.
And those last years were difficult years.
Yes, but you were special there at Dominican, and that was a blessing in our institution. So to bring this to some closure, I want to thank you for sharing your story with us. And the history department thanks you, but you're very significant in our congregation's history. So your willingness and your openness were very much appreciated. So thank you very much, and we wish you well as you continue to heal and hopefully be on the road again.
Thank you, and thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Joan.
It was very comfortable and very
Sister Joan
relaxed.
Weitz, Sister Marie Leon. Thank you.